What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are in the tour bus outside the Kingsland, and today we are here with Chad of Fall for the Fallen Dreams. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. Six is your latest record, which came out in 2018. You just want to give a rundown on how the making of the record was and the record cycle thus far?
We've always kind of sent stuff back and forth, kind of the MO for bands these days, but we've been trying to stay a little more in tune with just getting things going, to having it more organic, of having us write together a little bit more. So that's something that we got to do a little bit while we were in the studio with Josh Schroeder writing Six. We've done Heavy Hearts with Josh as well, and my other band Legend has done work with Josh. So it was really cool to just kind of feel right at home while we did it. Went home, drive back and forth. I'm 20 minutes from Josh. Jim's about 2 hours, so works out with family stuff and just being able to kind of make it a little bit easier on the recording and writing process when we're all so close to home. So yeah, six came out really well. It was, like I said, it was a lot more organic than releases we've done in the past, where everyone's just kind of sending files back and forth and yada yada. But it worked out well, man. It was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were doing the record kind of like in your hometown, and bands have stated this before, that like working in their hometown like is always like helps make the writing process easier, like you said, but it also like influences like how organic the record is in the sound. Is that the case for Six?
Yeah, for sure, man. That's like I said, with working with Josh and me and Jim, it's all a very tight knit little group when we get together and do it. So when we get to break out ideas, and Josh can not just be a producer, but a second pair of ears. Like, nah, man, get rid of that. That's not it. You know what I mean? Being friends and being able to have that and be home, it makes everything a lot more comfortable. Sometimes you go into recording studios where you're set. You got 3 weeks go, and that's it. Or you got 4 weeks, got to make this happen. Or that's not going to work. We got to kind of rush it. But with this, with working with him and where we've been and how long we've been together, it's a lot easier to do it in that setting. With being right at home.
Interesting. Now, what I've noticed is with For the Fallen Dreams is like, a lot of people, not to pigeonhole you guys by any means, but, we'll refer to you guys as like metalcore and stuff like that. And what I find unique is it's a very heavy style of music, but also a very melodic style of music as well. So do you have to start off with riffs and rhythm and like bring the heavier parts first and then add melody, or do you like write your music under an overlying element of melody?
This has kind of been something that we've been doing for so long. FTFD has always kind of been a melodic metalcore fusion, with deathcore elements and hardcore elements. We've been doing this since 2003, so it all just kind of comes out very, very natural, and it all comes out really natural. It's just it's the FTFD sound. I mean, you can look at records that were out that in 2008 with changes, and you can still hear those same elements in our new music now. So it's just kind of second nature when we put music together, especially with our style. That's just it's what we do, man.
Yeah. And I've noticed that like with the bands that are around your style, you could tour with like a variety of different bands too. Like I know that you've toured with a band like A Day to Remember, but you've also toured with a band like Oceano and Chelsea Grin and deathcore bands. Do you sometimes maybe like adjust your set list depending on the tour you're on? Like do you put?
I mean, yeah, 100%. Like we have a festival tomorrow with Chelsea Grin and a bunch of other way heavier bands than Six and what we've released. But that's kind of the beauty of what we do and how long we've been doing it, is that we have such a wide variety of songs and albums, and I like to think that we do them all pretty well, so we can kind of mask the set to kind of accommodate the fans or what festival we're on. But I feel like most of the time, we have a pretty wide variety of to pick from that makes it work for whatever set we're doing or festival or headlining tour. So it works out.
For you guys, because as somebody who listens to you guys, if I'm listening to a more melodic song, it sometimes has a different emotional aspect
100%.
and a different atmosphere than a real heavy song. Yep. For you guys, executing this material live, is that a different experience as well?
Yeah, but I think that's one of the coolest parts about coming to see For the Fallen Dreams, is that it brings in fans from every record cycle or every song. We have ones where everybody can just kind of vibe out, relax, and just close their eyes and dig deep into the song and have a good time. And then obviously we have our other songs where everybody can get rowdy and run around and throw trash cans or whatever it is that kids are doing these days. But it all it works out in the end. That's just kind of what we do, and we've been able to hone in on that pretty well, I think.
Throw trash cans, at this particular venue.
Yeah, of course. We're in Brooklyn, so trash cans, whatever's.
No, the best story. I don't know if you heard of this up and coming death metal band called I Am, or yeah.
They just were on our the Changes 10-year anniversary tour.
Oh, awesome.
They did a few of the dates and had some van trouble, so they had to hop off. But they got to do the Texas dates with us in the first 3 or 4 shows of the run. So yeah, killer band. Band.
They played here with Ingested back in, I think it was November, and I went out in the middle of the show just to answer my phone or something, and I hear the security guard come out and tell his colleague, "Dude, the wall is missing."
Good old Brooklyn, man. There's no other place like Brooklyn, New York City. So
Exactly. No sleep till Brooklyn.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
You got it.
And now you mentioned the Changes 10-year anniversary tour. You just led me into the next question, because I've always asked bands that like when they do an anniversary tour, especially for a record that's been out for a decade, do you have a different perspective on the record, playing it on a more recent tour than when you first put it out?
We always kind of, Changes was our staple record. It's what got the band. We have no shame in saying it's helped us boost our career to where it is now. Our first record, but it's cool because we've always still kind of played those songs in the set. So to revisit the whole record on the 10-year tour, we played songs like "Falling Down" was one of them. We never even played live before, so it was cool to play the whole record and just kind of feel out each and every song, and it kind of takes you back a little bit and helps you see where you were at that time. It was almost 11 years ago now, but we were all 18, 19 years old and green. So to play those songs and to be playing all those songs for kids who are like, hey man, I was listening to you in middle and high school. It makes you feel old, but it makes you feel good at the same time. So it was cool, man. The Changes tour was a blast.
You want to feel really old? You said 2003. I was in 3rd grade at that time. So.
Old, man. Real old, bro. Yeah, FTFD started in 03. I joined the band in 05, but yeah, we're getting up there, man. We're old for metalcore for sure. So,
well,
I'll take it though.
As Lemmy said, if you think you're too old to rock and roll, it means you are.
You got it, man. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, another thing I'm curious about is with For the Fallen Dreams. I know that in addition to really putting in a lot of effort into your music, I also feel like the lyrics are really meaningful, and I feel like your meaning is just as strong as your overall music. Does the meaning behind your music ever determine the outcome of the music itself?
It can, it totally depends where we're at in the writing process. If it's a point where we're really bare bones and we have just a bunch of skeleton tracks and we're really digging into something we want to approach on the next record lyrically or themed wise, it can definitely influence that. But a lot of the time, we're kind of just writing where we're at with any struggle that we're going on, whether it be personal or things in the past or present or future, looking at just our life as a whole or the band as a whole. I think anything you're going through, and not even just me, but the last record, Jim and Josh both had a lot of lyrics and helped do a ton of the songwriting. Probably more than half of it. We all just kind of sat in and whatever sounded best, and we all kind of used stems of what we felt we needed to touch on in certain songs, and they worked out to be some really strong songs. And there's ones that are obviously more personal than the others, and that's just kind of where the band has always been lyrically. It's always been a cool aspect. And I think it's that way with a lot of metalcore, though. We're obviously not the only band, especially metalcore band, to touch about just the emotional side of music like this. But
of course,
yeah.
Do you like to leave the music open to interpretation, or do you like to maybe have a listener maybe see things from your point of view and maybe inform, kind of put them in your shoes in a way?
Most definitely with some of the songs, sure. Yeah, some of the songs, if it's something that I personally want to address or I'm feeling a certain way about, and it's, that's the best way music is created, passionate music. And if people can connect on that level and they know exactly what I'm talking about right then and there, okay, he was going through some shit there, he felt this way about that, I can relate, I can feel that. And then there's other songs that are a little more vague, that just touch on things where it can be open to interpretation, where people can take that for whatever it is. But if the music is there and it's emotional enough, that's just as powerful as writing something super in depth. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. What I find interesting is, when you write songs that are coming from your heart, whether you're writing about a personal story or you're looking outward and,
Right.
like through a moment of history and using that, when you hear a fan like say that this related to me at this dark time and this helped me through this, or even they tell you what they saw in the song, even if it's nothing what you were thinking of,
Right.
can that maybe change your perception on the song as opposed to when you first wrote it?
It can. I mean, I think that just as a whole, to have somebody who, whether the lyrics is what moved them, or a certain guitar part or a drum part, I think that's the best part about it, because especially with music like ours, it it can be all of those things. It could be a certain riff that, like, man, I don't know what it was. There was no lyrics, but just that riff, man, just made me think of this certain time in my life. I was going through this, and I thank you for it. And it's the same way lyrically, and that's what's cool. That's the powerful piece of music and what we do, and I think it's cool that they can hit on those parts of lyrics or certain guitar riffs or drum parts or whatever it may be. The song as a whole, that's the best part about it. So.
Of course. And one other final question I'd like to ask you is, we talked extensively about metalcore, and as a metalcore lover, I've always found it like, you like Mayhem invented black metal, Death invented death metal, Metallica debatably invented thrash metal. So like, I never really understood who invented metalcore, with the exception of Jim Carrey, if you saw him on that talk show.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, because like, when I ask people what the definition of metalcore is, they say it's music that has singing and screaming in it, but
Sure.
I would never call Opeth or Fear Factory
Right,
or
right.
Soilwork metalcore. So
For sure.
what do you think the definition of metalcore is?
Oh man, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole here.
I'm smelling smoke right now.
Yeah, man. There's so many bands that have helped mold what this sound is. There's bands like Shai Hulud, and then there's the more poppier side of it. And I recently heard an interview of the guy from Atreyu saying that they invented metalcore, and while they were obviously pioneers, it was all that same more underground. When you listen to bands like Opeth or these more influenced metal bands, a lot of them weren't playing just small punk / hardcore / metal shows. And in the early 2000s and late 90s, and I think a lot of those bands, especially in punk and hardcore and metal, it was that fusion of everybody just kind of coming together for the same thing. Like, we'll play in a fucking basement, we'll play in a warehouse somewhere, everybody's gonna come and have a good time, get fucked up or don't. They're straight edge kids. It was all a mix of everything, and I think that's, if you were around in that era in the mid and late 90s or the early 2000s, I think everybody's had a lot of those bands that came up in that era helped mold what it is. To say one band created it is
Well,
there's no.
people would say like Every Time I Die was the first metalcore band, or they would say Converge, and then it was maybe Killswitch Engage or Shadows Fall. I think like the two bands that kind of made metalcore as mainstream as it is, I think the two bands that, like, I hate this term, but quote unquote made it emo were Atreyu and Under Oath. I think those were the two bands that
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember listening to those bands in the early 2000s. Same with like From Mom to Ashes and Avenged Sevenfold. There was all those bands and that helped mold what metalcore is. But to say one or a certain kind of band, I guess that's a black hole, man.
Yeah, I think out of all the subgenres on the periodic table, that's the most complicated one.
That's very, very, very true. But like I said, every band's helped put that staple in it somewhere. Even bands like us, I have no shame in saying that For the Fallen Dreams has had a foot in the door with early melodic metalcore. I mean, bands like us, and then bands like Misery Signals and Seven Angels, Seven Plagues influenced us. And Bury Your Dead, when they first came out, it's everybody takes something from somebody, because that's what it's all about, is finding these bands that were like, I can relate, or I love that sound. Let's do this, but in our own way. So.
Yeah. Bury Your Dead's is Nothing Personal. It's like 10 years old, I think. I was hoping they'd play that.
That's crazy. The killer record, one of my favorite of their records.
Oh my
but
God.
That's wild that that's already almost 10 years old.
Yep. I saw them on my first concert at that.
Yeah, killer record.
Yeah. So before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today.
Of course, man.
Is there just anything else with For the Fallen Dreams that you would like to promote in terms of new music or tours or anything?
We got some stuff coming up in Europe in August. We're going to be doing some headlining shows over in the UK and mainland Europe, but we're also doing a couple big festivals, doing a few festival dates with Art as Murder, doing with Crystal Lake and Evergreen Terrace. So we got some cool stuff to look forward to this summer in Europe for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Everybody,
appreciate it.
of course, everybody, For the Fallen Dreams 6, pick it up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time. Who do you think invented metalcore?